Good morning, everyone. Welcome to church. So good to see that you can be with us here on this Sunday morning. My name is Josh, I'm one of the pastors here. And this morning's looking a little bit different to how we normally do it. Normally, I would get the opportunity to present for about 20-25 minutes on a topic, but I'm going to be really quick here because I want to interview these guys, Simon and Ruth Warwick, and so I'm looking forward to that. They had the questions beforehand, so I'm looking forward to some of the stuff you prepared for us here. So this 10 minutes, I just want to set up the series we're going to be looking at for the next 4 weeks, just to get us in the mental zone. Because the last month, if you joined us through the month of June, we got to sit through an incredible series called Not All Superheroes Wear Capes. And just talking with a few people around that topic, it's been really interesting how engaging and how easy it's been able to get a handle on a few of the concepts that Karen has been unpacking for us. Heroes make it happen. And it's not about looking for this person who's super prepared and the one who's obviously going to save us all. It's actually about having the courage to step out and make life better for another person. So if you missed that series or you'd like to go back and listen to it again, then you can jump online and you can catch all of that. So to transition out of that space and get our head into this new space for this following series, I just want to set it up for us. Because follow as an idea is something that's very simple, but something that takes a lifetime to unpack. And in fact, the truth of the matter is that we're all figuring out, each one of us, how to follow something or someone. It's just what we're doing. We're all trying to follow something or someone. Here's a few things that you and I, as we live out our lives on earth, try to get along. For some of us, we like to follow sports. I didn't get the result last night. Did Australia win? Well, thank you for coming. We'll see you next. That's unfortunate. That's all good. Some of us follow sports, and when we win, isn't it amazing? And when we lose, Dockers fans, silly sport, AFL. Go Ash Barty, there we go. Someone's winning. Some of us love following sports. When we win, it feels amazing. When we lose, not so much. People of influence. Some of us love to read up on great characters of history. We love to read up on Mother Teresa, on Gandhi, on current political leaders, people who are influencing the world we like to follow. Some of us follow them on Twitter and get information that may or may not be correct. For some of us, it's jobs. We love to just follow what is the next job that we have to do. I'm working here, but I want to be somewhere in 10, 15, 20 years. How can I get to a better job? How can I do something and make a name for myself in whatever field it is that you happen to be working in? Or maybe you want to transition into a new job. For some of us, we're following success. Whatever that means and however that is defined for you personally. We just want to make sure that our life, when all is said and done, we can look back and say we have made a success of what we have had. And some of us are following that. We really want that. For some of us, it's friends. We don't want to be the trendsetter, but we want to make sure we're surrounded by people who we get to follow. For some of us, it's family. And it's really interesting when it comes to following family, because when you look at your family of origin, the chances are you'll do one of two things. You'll either try to replicate what you had, or you'll try and just go a whole nother direction and just try and make it change what your family of origin may have been. For some of us, it's relationships. We're just chasing really deep and meaningful relationships. Some of us, it's money. When we're going well, we're going well. When we're not, everything sucks. Some of us, it's entertainment. We don't care what we do in this life. As long as we're entertained, I'm happy. Netflix is great for that. Facebook, Instagram, social media is great for being entertained. Movies, going to sporting events. And in fact, in terms of our current cultural context, entertainment is one of the big things that fights for our time. Because we live in a society right now, which is very blessed, in which we can spend excess income on entertainment, or entertainment is easily accessible to us through the forms of media, television, and so on. So we're all trying to follow something in this world. We're all looking at something and going, I want to model my life, my behavior, what I do, how I am, who I am sometimes, on something. And at the end of the day, we all know this instinctively, what we're following is where we will end up. If we're trying to follow success, then we're going to end up either in success or unsuccessful. If we're following relationships, we're either going to end up with really healthy ones or unhealthy ones. But whatever happens, whatever we've got our eyes on, our mind on, and we're trying to modify our life for, what we're aiming for is where we will end up. So where does Jesus fit into all of this? Now, I want to set up the series by asking a couple of questions that aren't meant to be answered and just meant to get us to think a little bit. You've joined us this morning, or maybe online, because you want to hear something about probably what Jesus said, or you're interested in what a Christian community thinks. Correct? That's why you're here. Or maybe you're here for the good music or the coffee afterwards. Whatever it is, all good. But hopefully if you're here to hear about what Jesus thinks or what Jesus is thinking about, then when it comes to this idea of follow and what he thinks we should be following in our lives, the answer that he gives us very clearly is that you should be following me. You should be following me. Jesus says that as you live your life and as you try to understand the world in which you have been placed, I stand, Jesus, not me, Josh, but I, as Jesus, stand as what you should be choosing to follow. And that's what he gives us. He doesn't give us, here's 30 things you need to do. He gives us an example of his life. And he gives us the Bible to try and figure out and interpret for us in our time and space how we are to follow Jesus in this context. Because context really does matter. Jesus and following him is not about following one direction in terms of it is this and always will be forever and ever. It's actually going in my cultural context, where I am right now, with the world that I've been placed into, what does it look like for me to follow the example of Jesus? And that looks different in this culture as it will in other countries or as it will even over East. It just is. Where we find ourselves right now is very individual. But Jesus says, follow me, and we try to figure out how that looks. And the three things that we're going to look at over this series are that we want to look at how do we follow Jesus' words, works, and ways. And these are three filters that we can use when we're interpreting the words of Jesus or the life of Jesus. Because at the end of the day, if it's just about following what Jesus said, it can be really hard, because I don't know if you've read some of what he has to say, and we're going to look at Matthew chapter 5 quickly. He says some things which are really confusing or really difficult, or we could never ever do what he says we should do. It gets scary to look at what he has to say and go, well, what am I meant to do with that? But it's not just about looking at what Jesus said. It's looking at his works, the miracles that he performed, and the way he interacted with people. And it's looking at the ways of Jesus. When we're trying to understand what Jesus said, we've got to look at the way that he chose to live. Because if you want to understand truly what someone means when they say something, you've got to look at what they say and then what they do. Because if you only listen to what they say, you're only going to get part of the picture. But when you look at how they live, who they interact with, how they handle awkward situations, that's where you start to unpack a little bit more about what they mean by what they say. So those are the three things that really helps. Yep, the words, what he said, the works, the miracles he performed, and the ways in which he lived. And at the end of the day, this is what I really want to come through this series, is that it's not about being perfect. If you look at scripture and say it's a rule book and I have to be perfect, then you're always going to fall short. But if you look at the life of Jesus and understand it's actually about following him, and it sounds super vague now, like what does it mean to follow him? We're going to unpack that over the next couple of weeks. But how do we actually position our life, who we are, what we do, our day in and day out life, and how do we look at the life of Jesus and say, well, I'm going to take a step towards following him, following what he says, the miracles he performed, and the way that he chose to live.